Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Afrin Rajai and today I'm going to talk about the Gottman method. I'm also trained in Gottman method level 1 and 2 and 3 and I hope that my experience with Gottman method in my private practice and working with couples could be helpful in this lecture. This lecture is going to be helpful for you if you are having the Gottman method in your theories class, if you are studying for the exam, and or also if you are interested in knowing more about Gottman method, so you see if you want to continue with the formal and professional trainings that they have in Seattle, or if you want to continue using or start using this method in working with couples. So in the picture you see Dr. John and Julie Gottman. They developed Gottman method back in 80s, and one of the significance about Gottman method is the fact that it's very research-based and data-driven. So they invited couples to spend a weekend in an apartment, and everything was ordinary except the fact that all the interactions were recorded during that weekend with consent and everything. So they had all this huge data and started analyzing them and finding patterns, and based on that they developed Gottman method. It has many different major concepts from CBT. They also consider emotions and the concept of meta-emotion in their methods. But one of the things that I personally find very interesting is before Gottman method, if you were reading a psychology book, a book about couples before 80s, it would suggest that one of the big difference between happy couples and unhappy couples is about the fights. So key factor was the fight. So they would say unhappy couples, they have a lot of fights, and happy couples, they don't fight a lot, and that was based on common sense a lot of time. And then with the data and with what Dr. Gottman, Julie and John Gottman, what they did, we realized that that is really not the fight, that is not really the key factor. How we fight is really more important, and we're going to talk about that more in the future slides. But that was a kind of like very interesting thing for me, at least, because it shows how it's important to conduct research study and to go with evidence-based theories, because data and what we see in our clinical practice and in research studies, that is really what we want to focus and what we want to continue with when we are working with couples. When we are talking about therapists' role in Gottman method, besides the different things that usually they are common in therapy and couples therapy, like working on the alliance, be mindful of the rapport that you have with client, those kinds of things that are really important. Two major things that we want to focus include assessment and integrating research-based interventions. And again, we're going to talk about those things in more details just in a second. But the assessment part is really important in Gottman method, because Drs. Gottman believe that it's like when you go to a physician, when you have a symptom, when you have a complaint. If you go there and say, hey, this is, I have headaches, or I have, whatever, and the physician or the doctor in front of you do not ask you any questions, or, if they don't do a comprehensive assessment and they just start to prescribe something or suggest something to you, that doesn't make sense, right? Because how is it possible that you didn't have a comprehensive assessment, you didn't ask all these different questions, and you believe that whatever you're doing, your intervention per se, is helping the patient, right? So they believe that it's the same kind of like concept in therapy, and when we are talking about couples therapy. If we do not have a comprehensive assessment, if we do not consider all these different factors that may impact the relationship, all the different aspects of a relationship, we cannot help couples in a best way. So because of that assessment part is really important in Gottman method. And then after that, integrating all these different research-based interventions that, again, like, it's not just like common sense, it's not just theory, it's research-based, from research, from the data. We know these things clinically and scientifically, they are proven to be helpful. So it's important to integrate those interventions throughout our sessions as well. When you work with couples based on Gottman method, you always start seeing couples with the assessment phase. And then after that, you move forward with intervention. I do not believe that it should be necessarily like linear, that it's assessment, you're done, then, intervention. No, because all the time when you are doing the intervention, you can still, assess for some of the things. Everything can be information for you. But at the same time, in Gottman method, the focus is really, in the beginning is on the assessment because of the reason that I just told you in the previous slide. So this assessment phase includes sessions that you have with partners, couple, like together, the sessions that you have with them individually, online, or Gottman relationship checkup, and then the feedback session. So you start seeing couples for usually 80 minutes for 1 or 2 sessions, and in those sessions you focus on the stories that they have, the complaints, the patterns, the interactions, all these different things. And then you see each of them individually for around 50 minutes, and that is not individual therapy, that is still couples therapy. The reason that you see them individually is because you want to focus on their stories. And then in the meanwhile, there's this Gottman relationship checkup that they can do. You send them a link and they answer some questions. It's really user friendly in terms of they can, answer 10 questions, pause, come back the other day and, answer 20 questions. So each partner needs to complete the test individually, and you as the therapist, you can only use this service if the Gottman Institute, if they approve you, you need to pass, I don't know if 1 or 2 levels of their training, and then after that, you can be approved for doing this relationship checkup. So when couples, they fill out, they complete the relationship checkup, then they will send you the results, and then you can analyze that and use it for the last session of the assessment phase, which is the feedback session. So in the feedback session, you kind of like give couples a summary of the relationship, the sound relationship house, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. You talk about that, and then you give them feedback based on the sessions, the previous conversations that you had in the assessment phase, and also the online or Gottman relationship checkup that they had. So you kind of like give them a summary of, this is the sound relationship house in your relationship, and these are the parts that are, they are great. These are the parts that could be more powerful or strong, and these are the things that you really need to work on them. This picture, you see the sound relationship house, which is kind of a summary of the Gottman method. And then, as I mentioned previously, when you have the feedback session with couples, you're going to talk about the sound relationship house for them. So this is the summary of the summary of Gottman method. And Gottman look at relationship, and a good relationship similar to a house, that a house it has different levels, different foundations, and it has walls, it has a structure in general, right? So they believe, based on again research and data, they believe that a good relationship, the sound relationship house, is similar. It has a structures. There are some of the things when they analyze all that huge data, right? They saw that, couples that they report happy, we see some similar patterns among them. And couples that they say, we are not happy, this is horrible, this is not working, when we look at their relationships, we see some, similar patterns, right? And then couples who are like, they're not that happy, they're not that unhappy, still we see some patterns in their relationship. So based on that, they came up with this relationship house, which I think it's great. A lot of times when I talk about this with my clients, and sometimes I even say it's like anatomy of a relationship, right? So if you want to become a physician, a nurse, you usually have a course about human body anatomy, right? And I feel like this is about the anatomy of a relationship in a way. So a lot of times in my experience, when you talk about this with couples, even though they have some ideas about some of the things that they need to improve, some of the things that are not working, they know that there is something wrong. But when you talk about this sound relationship house with them, they feel like, oh, now I get it. Now I have some sort of language, words to talk about this. Now I can categorize it. So sometimes they even tell me it's like, before knowing about the sound relationship house, I knew something was wrong, but it was like looking at a desk or table that is very, like, there are all these different things on the table or on your desk, and it's so unorganized, and when you look at it you're just like, oh my god, right? It's just so frustrating. But then knowing about the sound relationship house or the anatomy of a relationship, it's so helpful, because it's like you still look at the desk or the table and there are all these different things on the table. It's not magic or magical that just by knowing this everything now is good. But it seems like now the table or the desk is kind of like more organized. So now when I look at all this cluster of things, oh, I can see that pens, they are here, papers, they are here, or scissors, it's here. So so it's about knowing a language, having a language, and categorizing things that you see they are going on in your relationship. So it is really, really helpful in my experience. So let's see what the house is about. What is the method, Gottman method, is about? So as you see, there are different levels here, and there are two main pillars. So the foundation of the relationship house, or the sound relationship house, is about building love maps. And building love maps is really about how you are familiar with your partner's world, right? The different things that they have, values, goals, things that they like, vulnerabilities, all these different things. Do you know those things? Are you familiar with that or not, right? Then we have the second floor, which is about sharing fondness and admiration. And sharing fondness and admiration is about seeing the things, because we usually see the things that are not completed in our relationships, right? So we see the negative ones. But sharing fondness and admiration is about seeing the things that also, there are good things in our relationship as well, and seeing those things and talking about them, and having appreciation and expressing that appreciation towards them, right? Then we have the next floor, which is about turning towards instead of turning away. And turning towards is really about responding to your partner's bids for attention, bids for connection, right? So the efforts that all of us we have in our relationship every day, so many moments, so many different things, that we do something, we say something, and really the intention behind what we do or what we say is that connection that we want to have with our partner, and seeing that and responding to that is really important. The opposite of that would be not responding to those bids for connection. So if my partner says anything about even like stupid topics, right? So if he looks at the window and say, hey, look at the tree, it's just so it's not green today, or look at the sky, it's just purplish today, right? Anything that even like you would think that that is not important. I'm doing my job here, I'm reading this article here, that is just so much more important than what you just said, right? Even like in those moments, recognizing that those are beats for connection, right? So it's really important for me to turn towards to that, or turn away, like not saying anything, or sometimes we turn against those things. So we say something that is mean or not kind at all. And that is about turning towards. So the next thing, the next level that you see in this picture is about the positive perspective. And positive perspective versus negative perspective is really about the three previous levels. So the three previous levels, they suggests what we call friendship system in a relationship. And the stronger your friendship system is, the more chance that you experience positive perspective in your relationship. And positive perspective and negative perspective, they're not like dimmer switch that you say, hey, I'm like 20% positive, 80% negative. They're more like turn on or off switch that you either feel positive or negative in any minutes. So when you have a positive perspective, there's a chance that there's more chance for you to see the negative things in your relationship, and at the same time, because the atmosphere is positive, you can deal with them. But then when you have the negative perspective, even though there are some positive things in your relationship, you don't see them because the atmosphere is negative. I hope that that makes sense. You can pause at any time during this lecture if you think that, oh, I need just to think about that for a moment, or I need to think about an example of that. And, I think that would be really, really helpful sometimes. So after the positive perspective, we have manage conflict or conflict management. And there is a specific reason why Dr. John and Julie Gottman, they say conflict management and not resolving conflict, because they believe that there is a difference between managing conflicts or compromising around conflicts versus solving conflicts, right? So when you solve a problem, you have what you wanted to have, right? But when you compromise around something, you do not have what you wanted to have, but you would have a part of what you wanted to have. So let's give you an example. Right now I'm recording this lecture, right? And let's say I'm hungry. So a solution like solving that problem would be exactly right now I'm going to pause or stop recording and I go and eat, I don't know, a hamburger, right? That would be solving my problem. But compromising around my problem would be, I still feel like I know that I'm hungry. I know that I want, something to eat. Probably, I don't know, let's say I crave for a hamburger. And at the same time, I realized that, okay, I can, deal with this. I need another, I don't know, whatever minutes to record this. And then after that, I can go and we don't have hamburger here, but I can eat, I don't know, let's say hot dog, right? That would be a compromise. I get a part of what I wanted instead of, in solving a problem, you get, 100% what you wanted. And in relationships, in couples, you are seeing two people, two individuals who are in this relationship together, and they can be very, very different, right? We all are different. We have different values, different backgrounds, cultures, all these different things. And relationships, they can be very complicated, right? And because of that, it is not just possible to say everything is just so sweet and beautiful and life is beautiful. There are times that we have disagreement, fundamental disagreement about things, and that is fine. So it's not about, again, like not having conflicts. It's not about not having fights. It's about how we talk about those things, right? So from research in Gottman method, we know that 2/3 of the problems, they are perpetual problems in a relationship. They're not going to be disappear in a relationship. They are going to be there, and because of that, it's really important to look at what we have in this picture. It's really important to see how you are working with your partner's influence, how you are having dialogues about problems, and how you practice self-soothing. So in the next slide, I talk about more about this conflict management in terms of the Four Horsemen, and they are very famous. I bet most of you you heard of them, and maybe you already using them in your work. But they really, when they did again like this huge study and different studies, and they work with the huge data, they realize that couples, when they report that they are not happy in their conversations, they use one or two or three or four of these Four Horsemen, these patterns: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, or stonewalling. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about them more in more details, define them for you. But just for now, know that those patterns, if the couples that you're working with them, if they are using in their relationships, that's really a bad sign. And what we want to do, one of the interventions that we do with Gottman method is to work with that communication, right? We want to help them with having more gentle startup, describing more of their feelings and, the different things that, again, like we're going to cover in this lecture. But that is about conflict management, that we really want couples to understand that there are going to be perpetual problems. They're going to be a way and different ways to talk about the problem. It's really important that they feel like they are in the same team and they are working on this problem together, versus the thing that a lot of times happens, we feel like we are on different teams and we are keeping scores, right? So I'm 2, you're 0, I'm right, you're wrong, this is what I believe and it is it, and what you believe is just nonsense, right? So working on that with couples and talking about it is really important. Personally, in my private practice, I would say like more than 90% of time, or couples that I see, they have, they need real work with conflict management. And I think it's very normal in terms of our socialization. I think that we should learn about conflict management and how to have constructive conversations in our families, at schools, in our society. And a lot of times, if we were not that lucky to observe that in our own family, and if there was no one to teach us that when we were at school or in society, then of course that we are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and still like we don't know. We still feel like this is how my way or highway kind of thing. So let's go to the next level, which is about making life dreams come true, and then the level after that, which is about create shared meaning. So make life dreams come true is about, again, like knowing your partner's dreams, goals in life, and honoring those things and helping them, supporting them in having those dreams come true, right? And then we have create shared meaning, which comes from the work of Dr. Frankl. If you have read his book, Man's Search for Meaning. So Dr. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist during the Second World War, and he was in camps, and then it was a horrible situation. They killed everyone, but they kept him alive because he was a physician and he was helpful. So in that camp, he realized and he observed that people who stay alive, they are not necessarily the strongest one in terms of physical strengths. They are the one who have or had some sort of vision for life. So for example, one of them would say, I'm going to get out of here and find my partner, and we move to the US and we start this life or business. So some sort of vision for life. And based on his work, they believe that if that is important for a human being, that is also very important for a relationship, to have some sort of shared meaning, to have some sort of rituals, and to have some sort of, fun things that we do together. And again, like a lot of times when I ask couples about those rituals, they tell me like all these big things that, oh, we travel once a year, or we do this, once every 6 months. And those things, they are great. But at the same time, small things often, the things that we do often, they are small, but they have more frequency. Those are the things that are really, really life-changing and relationship-changing for all of us. Then at the end, we have 2 pillars, trust and commitment. And I think that we all have a kind of like sense of or definition of trust and commitment. Trust is that feeling that when you can say, oh, my partner is really there for me. So you feel that support, you have that trust. And then commitment is when you can say, oh, I feel like I'm on this journey with my partner. It's a lifelong journey for us to be together and to grow together, right? This is about Gottman method. One of the things that I usually have conversation about when I work with couples is I really ask them to talk about and have definition of trust and commitment for themselves, because we tend to think that the definitions are kind of like nationwide or worldwide, like we all have universal definition of these terms or words. And I think that is not true. So and life gets more complicated each day, right? So we have some couples, some people who think that, oh, if you trust me, if we are in this committed relationship, I need to have your Facebook or Instagram password. I need to have your email password, right? And there are some people who think that that is my privacy, that is my private life. I do not want to share that with you. I love you, but I do not want to share that with you. So again, like those conversations, and adding to that the different cultures that we come from, the different belief system that we have around, what does, affair mean to you or to me, or talking to this other person outside of our relationship, or having relationship and friendship outside of our relationship. So because of that, I think that those conversations, they are really, really important when we are talking about trust and commitment. Four horsemen, or the four patterns that I was talking about in the previous slides, you can see them here, right? Criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling, and they have to do with conflict management level, right? That part of the sound relationship house. And as I mentioned, Dr. John and Julie Gottman, in analyzing all that huge data, they realized that couples who report that they are not happy, they use these four patterns in their conversations, in their interactions, right? And then couples who report that they are happy, they still talk about their complaints and share the complaints and talk about the things that they do not like in a partner or a relationship, but they're using the kind of like antidotes of what you're seeing on the left side. So they're using the antidotes and kind of like the opposite of the four horsemen, and with using those patterns, like more healthier patterns, they have better, more constructive conversations. So what are these four patterns? The first one is criticism, and criticism is usually about a lot of you statements, right? So you are like this. So in criticism, we are not talking about a specific behavior. We are talking about the person, right? So it's not about, oh, you did this and I didn't like this, right? It's about you are always lazy. You are always like this. You, right? So that's criticism. And the opposite of that, or the antidote to that, would be using gentle startup. And gentle startup is kind of like more softened, right? So you're still talking about the complaint that you have, but you talk about it with a white flag saying, hey, I want to talk about something. I don't want to argue or start a fight, right? So, and then you talk about a specific behavior, a specific interaction that happened. You're not describing your partner characteristics. Then we have contempt. Contempt is really similar to criticism, with the difference that in contempt, you feel like you are better than the other person. You feel like it's about superiority, right? So you feel like you know something, and then the other person, they don't know it, right? So you are smart, the other person is not smart. So the opposite, or the antidote to contempt, would be describing your own feelings, your own needs, and do not describing your partner. So you could say something like, oh, the other day when we went to party and I was all alone the whole night, I really felt embarrassed and angry and whatever, anxious. And I really wish like next time, or I'm hoping that next time that we're going to a party, you're going to stay with me for a longer time, right? So that's very different from say, oh my God, last night it was horrible. You left me alone and you're always so careless, right? So that would be contempt. The other pattern would be defensiveness, and defensiveness is when someone is attacking you and you feel like you need to defend yourself, right? So if a statement, an argument, a conversation starts with you, then you're going to say, oh my God, you are talking about me? You don't remember what you did last time, right? So you are defending yourself. And at the same time, sometimes because of different reasons, for example, if we've been in this situation a lot in the past, in our childhood, for example, even like if a conversation it doesn't start with you or it doesn't have criticism, we still go to that defensiveness mode because of the previous pattern. The opposite of that would be taking responsibility. So instead of defending ourselves, we would say, I never thought about it like that, and yeah, you're right, I was wrong, or I should have done XYZ, right? So you're taking responsibility instead of defending yourself. And then the last one is stonewalling. And stonewalling is about withdrawing from the conversation. And these days it's just so easy because we all have a cell phone and smartphone and tablet, iPad, whatever. So the other person is talking to us and we're just watching TV. So it's like they're talking to the wall, right? So it's stonewalling. And really, with doing that, we are sending a message to the other person that you don't have any influence on me. And because of that, and because of some of the studies that have been done on stonewalling, doing or helping ourselves with physiological self-soothing could be really, really helpful, because in that moment that we feel like we're going to get flooded, or we are getting flooded, we can just ask for timeout, do some sort of physiological self-soothing, whatever works for you, or for the couples that you're working with. It could be just listening to music, meditation, going for a short walk, drinking a glass of water, whatever. And usually it's at least like it should be around 20 minutes. And then after that, coming back to the conversation and continue the conversation, or schedule, another conversation for another time. A lot of times when I talk about this with couples, then, I ask them, what do you think? What is the most, pattern that you see in yourself, in your partner, in your relationship? And most of the times, again, like 95% of the times, they are seeing a lot of these things in their relationships. And it's really nice to talk about it, because again, like, they recognize what's going on and they have words for it, and they see how it's not just for them. It's this is like a pattern that that Dr. John and Julie Gottman, we found in research-based studies about other couples as well. And if they are using this, it's going to be really bad for their relationship. So among all these four patterns, contempt is the worst. It's correlated with all these different things for the person that is using it: heart attack, blood pressure, high blood pressure, all these different things. So and that is the bad side, the bad news. But the good news is these are all different things that we can all work on, we can all improve. It's just a matter of practice and time. And we can, the great thing about Gottman method is that they have very practical tools and interventions in working on all these different things when it comes to couples therapy intervention and tools. Things that we have talked so far in Gottman method, really the main goals include improving conflicting communication, increasing intimacy, respect, and affection, and improving relational shared meaning in couples. Kind of like working on the whole structure of the sound relationship house. And of course that the manifestation of all these different goals could be different couple to couple. Gottman method has different interventions. I just have 4 of them here as an example. If you are interested in learning more, as I mentioned, you can continue with the formal training that they have, or the different books that are out there about Gottman method. So one of the most practical one is gentle startup. And again, it sounds easy, but when you practice this with couples, sometimes you see how it's difficult for them to actually practice this. And when they go and come back next session, they report that, oh, this sounded easy, but when I wanted to practice this, or we wanted to practice this during the week, it was really challenging. So gentle startup is if you remember, it's the antidote of criticism. So you want to teach couples how they can have a conversation, but at the same time be polite. They can still talk about what they want, what they need, but in a positive way. And they can still talk about their own feelings, their own needs, and reality, but in a way that they are not describing the other partner, right? So you kind of let him know that there's a way to talk about this, and showing a white flag and say, hey, I want to just talk about this. I don't want to argue with you or have a fight. And so with practicing with them, you ask them to have this conversation in therapy. They can pick up a topic that they want, and you really help them with these guidelines that I just mentioned. Be polite, ask at the end of the conversation, ask what do you think, and if they start going on off the direction with criticism, condemn, you're going to stop them, you're going to redirect them, you're going to actually ask them to talk about a complaint that they have in a polite way. They talk about their own feelings and needs and kind of like ask for what they need in a positive way instead of saying what I don't want, right? So instead of saying, hey, I'm just so tired of this. Every time that you're making dinner, I have to pick up things after you, and I'm just so sick of this. So, which is not a gentle startup, right? So instead of that, they can talk about go with gentle startup, and they say, hey, you know what? In the past, remember when you used to cook dinner and you really cleaned the kitchen after that? It was really nice to me. And I'm wondering, because sometimes when it happens that I know I appreciate that you cook dinner, but at the same time, after that, I see that the kitchen is unorganized and it's not clean, and it makes me frustrated and I feel angry about it, and I feel, whatever they feel about it. I was wondering, I would appreciate it if next time you clean the kitchen after, the dinner, or if you have any other suggestion in terms of how we can come up with a plan to, do something else about it, right? What do you think? So that would be a gentle startup. There's another intervention which is super helpful, and it's dreams within conflict. So dreams within conflict is really about the practice of being a good listener and listening to someone to understand something instead of listening to someone to respond back or listening to someone to solve a problem, right? So in this practice, you have a set of questions that you give couples and ask them to pick up a conflict that they have, and they're going to ask, one person is going to be the speaker, the other one is going to be the listener, and the listener is going to ask all the questions from the speaker, and the speaker is going to talk about those questions. But the point is that the listener, the person who is asking the questions, cannot comment on the questions in order to argue for their own point of view. So the whole practice is just to listen, to understand, not to respond back, not to solve anything. And that is, again, like it may seem easy, but it's really challenging for some couples when they practice it in your office. Then we have another intervention, which is about repair checklists. So there's a checklist of repair attempts that couples can do in their relationship, and they're going to check the actions, the behaviors, the checklist with the partner and see the things that they have in mind. Are they, working for the partner or not? And then another intervention is small things often. So in this intervention, you can give them couples a manual or a list of Gottman Institute has this PDF file that you can give couples, and it has a list of suggestions for the small things that couples they can do daily, weekly, and it's really that practice of turning towards and sharing fondness and admiration on a daily basis instead of waiting for just these, a birthday or, Mother's Day or, whatever, to do a gesture for the other person. You have followed my lectures on different theories. Usually I finish the lecture with this slide about diversity and culture. I ask you to pause and think about the role of diversity and culture in the theory or methodology that you just learned about or read about or heard of in your experience. A lot of these theories and methodologies, they have been done with different population, with different cultures. And I think that one question that I repeat in most of my lectures is that, are we thinking about diversity in culture just in this way that a theory or methodology has considered diversity in culture if they did research on different populations? And if that research showed us that, yes, it works with XYZ population or culture as well, is that the way that we are looking at how a theory or methodology has considered diversity in culture, or are there other ways to look at this question as well? And for you, again, to pause and see, when you hear about all these different concepts, how much that theory consider the fact that whatever the main concept, the main intervention, assessment, whatever it is, Is it about different cultures, different belief systems, or was it just developed based on working with, middle class white people? So that's a question for you to think about, and let me know if you have any questions.